Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of College Football Poll Zero Blitz. I'm your host this week, Thomas Cashin. I'm back after a couple of weeks off. I want to thank Scotty for holding down the fort and giving everybody the top 15. So we had a lot of different things going on this week, a lot of upsets, a lot of near upsets, and some ass whoopings that was handed out. So first, we'll go ahead and talk about a couple of those things real quick. How about them dogs handing out a big-time beating to the Texas Longhorns? Some people say Texas is overranked. I know a couple of Alabama fans that will say that, but they got beat by Oklahoma, so what do they know exactly? Texas is not that bad of a football team, but, we had an upset down in Tuscaloosa, Oklahoma Sooners beating Alabama. We had a near upset in Oxford with Florida giving Ole Miss Rebels a run for their money. And how about this one? So down in Aggieland, between the Gamecocks, South Carolina versus the Texas A&M Aggies, I saw this score Saturday afternoon when I was on my break. 30-3 at the half, South Carolina led. How about Texas A&M coming all the way back from a 30-3 deficit to win 31-30 and to save their SEC title opportunity in a couple of weeks in Atlanta? That is a humongous comeback. Now, what South Carolina is going to do, they dropped the 3-7 on the year, so their bowl opportunity is over. And they've had a couple of teams that they've had on the ropes. They had A&M on the ropes. They had Alabama on the ropes. They had LSU on the ropes and couldn't get it done. So the question is how, what are they going to do about Shane Beamer? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into a look at my top 15 teams for this week. Now, they are going to be a little bit different than what Scotty's had, so I kind of view teams a little bit differently than he does. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. At number 1, I've got Ohio State at 10-0. At number 2, I've got Texas A&M at 10-0. And 3, I've got Indiana at 11-0. 4, I've got Georgia at 9-1. 5, I've got Texas Tech at 10-1. 6, I've got Ole Miss at 10-1. 7, I've got Oregon at 9-1. And here's where a couple of two-loss teams come in. At number 8, I've got Oklahoma at 8-2. At 9, I've got Notre Dame at 8-2. And at number 10, I've got Alabama at 8-2. At number 11, I've got Utah 8-2. 12, I've got Vanderbilt at 8-2. 13, I've got BYU at 9-1. 14, I've got Georgia Tech at 9-1. And 15, I've got Miami at 8-2. Very interesting. I think the top 3, you could really flip a quarter on how good they are. I think Ohio State's really good. I don't think they've been tested since that Texas game. We'll find out in a couple of weeks against Michigan, what kind of team exactly do they have. Texas A&M struggled last week, but they're just winning these games. Indiana's steamrolling a lot of folks. They played at Oregon, a very good team, and beat them by 10. And you have Texas Tech hanging around. I think Georgia, we're getting hot at the right time. And then you've got Oklahoma in. A lot of folks say Alabama slid too far. I could have put Alabama ahead of Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame's playing a lot better football than Alabama is right now. Yes, Alabama's played a brutal schedule, but still, that's just my opinion. I think there's a lot of I'll say this. I don't think there's a 2022 Georgia, a 2019 LSU, a 2018 Clemson, or a 2020 Alabama domination team out there. I really don't think there is. I think every team has got flaws. Georgia, the defense is a question mark, and the run is a question mark sometimes. Alabama, they can't run the ball at all, and that is a problem. They got exposed. When you turn the ball over 3 times against a top 10 team, I don't care if you're at home or on the road, 9 times out of 10, you ain't going to win that football game. And Ole Miss, they've got some defensive problems. You look at Indiana, not sure about them. Their record says what they are, but they're not really that much tested. Just like Texas A&M is not really that much tested, if I'm being quite frankly honest. So I think it's wide open, folks. Anybody can win it this year. And that is a that is my top 15 for this week. And I'll see you back here next week. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Have a great week, everybody.